Greetings, welcome to the regular meeting of the Climate and Infrastructure Committee for January 9th, 2025. I'm Katie Cashman, chair of this committee. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. The broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings. All speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that the captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcasts. Thank you. So at this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll to verify quorum.
Councilmember Vita.
Present.
Osman is absent. Chavez.
Present.
Chowdhury.
Present.
Vice Chair Koski is absent. Chair Cashman.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We'll start with the consent agenda, items 1 through 17 on the agenda. Additionally, we have one item to postpone that I will move with the consent agenda. Item 1 is accepting a grant from the Met Council Environmental Services for private sewer lateral repairs. Item 2 is amending a previous council action related to a local road improvement program grant to update the grant amount. Item 3 is amending the capital improvement program for the 2nd Street North Sanitary Improvement Project and 1st Avenue South paving projects. Item 4 is approving appointments to the Bassett Creek Watershed Management Commission. Item 5 is approving appointments to the Shingle Creek Watershed Management Commission. Item 6 is accepting an implementation grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for stormwater resilience. Item 7 is accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation for expanding the Stage 1 digital curb management pilot project. Item 8 is authorizing a cooperative construction agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for lighting and sidewalk work along Dunwoody Boulevard under the 394 bridge. Item 9 is authorizing an agreement with the Metropolitan Council and BNSF Railway Company relating to the Loose Line Regional Trail Bridge. Item 10 is authorizing a subordinate funding agreement with the Met Council for professional staff costs related to the Metro Green Line extension, otherwise known as the Southwest Light Rail. Item 11 is authorizing an agreement with the University of Minnesota to acquire a temporary construction easement for the Oak Street Protected Bikeway project. Item 12 is authorizing the submission of a grant application for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's Local Climate Action Implementation Grant Program for the 2025 As You Go Minneapolis Mode Shift campaign. Item 13 is confirming Jim Vole to the Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Program Board. Item 14 is authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Minneapolis Foundation's EPA Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Grant-Making Program to develop resilience hubs. Item 15 is authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the USDA Forest Service Wood Innovation Program for the Minneapolis Biochar Production Facility. Item 16 is referring to staff the gas franchise agreement ordinance. Item 17 is referring to staff the electric franchise agreement ordinance. And item 18 is postponing the concept layout and easements for 38th Street and Chicago Avenue, otherwise known as George Floyd Square, to the meeting of January 23rd. I will note that items 16 and 17 are being referred to staff. These are the electric and gas franchise agreements. And the goal is to have these tentative utility franchise agreements and the accompanying Clean Energy Partnership MOUs on the city website next week. We tentatively expect the public hearing to be set at the January 23rd CNI meeting to be held at the February 6th CNI meeting. So the clerk's office is still reviewing the draft language, and pending completion of their review, the documents will soon become available for the public to see ahead of the council action. And if committee members have questions or want to pull this out, lead attorney Jocelyn Bremer is here to answer questions on that as well. So otherwise, I'll move approval of the consent agenda, including the postponement of item 18. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair Cashman.
here at the first meeting of the Climate and Infrastructure of 2025. So happy New Year to everyone, especially our Public Works Department. Just wanted to express more publicly out to the community with the franchise agreement coming before us on February 6th and the information around it becoming public. Just feel free to reach out to me if I'm your council member with any questions or concerns or thoughts. Happy to answer what I can answer, and then encourage you to reach out if you're not in the 12th ward to other members. We know that it's a really big deal to take up a new franchise agreement. It happens every 10 years, and so it's a big opportunity, and I, like many of my colleagues, have a huge commitment to climate action and resiliency and the steps that we can take, especially in light of the Trump administration that'll be taking effect in this January. And then, of course, we continue to see climate disaster take place throughout our country, really thinking about community members out in California and the Palisades. So just wanted to make that note, and just that's what this committee is about, right? We named it the Climate and Infrastructure Committee when we organized ourselves in the beginning of the term for a reason. So please do reach out, and thank you for your continued advocacy.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. That motion carries, and those items are approved. Thank you. So our final item today is receiving and filing the Minneapolis Clean Energy Partnership 2023 annual report. We have a few presenters today, and I'll invite Luke Hollenkamp up to kick off the presentation.
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon. Chair, thank you for having us here today. Committee members, thank you for having us here as well. My name is Luke Hollenkamp. I am a Sustainability Program Manager in the Health Department, and I'm also the lead staff member for the city on the Minneapolis Clean Energy Partnership. And we're here today to present the annual report that we recently presented to that partnership's board. Just a quick reminder of what the Clean Energy Partnership is. It was created about 10 years ago by the city and its utilities so that we could cooperatively pursue the city's climate and energy goals together. Primarily, the partnership is made up of a board, of which, of course, Chair Cashman is a member of, and that board brings together city and utility leadership. We also have an Energy Vision Advisory Committee, EVAC, who advises the work of that partnership, and that's made up of community members. And then there's a staff team that does much of the day-to-day operations of the partnership. So in addition to myself up here today, I'm joined by Sophia Troutman of Excel Energy, who will also be presenting, as well as Kat Knudsen of Centerpoint Energy, who will be presenting as well. So what we'd like to go through with you today on our agenda is the metrics that are included in the Clean Energy Partnership, as well as updates on the actual activities that we have undertaken over the last year as part of that body. The metrics in the Clean Energy Partnership are pulled directly from the climate energy goals of the Climate Equity Plan. As a reminder, the Climate Equity Plan passed a little over a year ago now, actually about a year and a half ago now, in 2023. So we selected 7 metrics from that plan that are tantamount to meeting our overall goals, and have focused on those as metrics. The first metric is our overall carbon emissions reduction goal. We seek to be net zero emissions as an entire community by 2050. What we've seen in 2023 is that we've had a 34% reduction in emissions since our baseline year of 2006. This is a significant reduction in emissions, but for the purposes of this report, we've stated that we are not on track to meet this goal. As you can see in the slide here, if you imagine a trend line coming out from our baseline year through 2023, in the not-so-distant future, that trend line will actually exceed the emissions reductions targets that we have set forth as a city in the Climate Equity Plan. So that's why we deem this to not be on target currently. To go into a little bit more detail of that, There are basically 5 sectors that make up our emissions inventory. Foremost, and what we'll be spending most of our time talking about today, is electricity and natural gas, otherwise known as fossil gas. We also then measure emissions from on-road transportation, as well as wastewater and solid waste. In the climate equity plan, in addition to those very specific yearly targets that I showed in the previous slide, we also created a trajectory, a pathway to get to net zero by 2050. This pathway came out of a methodology created by C40 cities, which helps cities assign to themselves what would be a decarbonization target based upon their historical emissions, as well as how affluent they as a community currently are, which is a proxy for how well they are going to be able to make these decarbonization investments. Again, looking at trend line, and if we look at, let's say, the last 5 years of decarbonization, as shown here, you can extend that trend line, which is shown by the top of the hatched area, and you can see that in about 2026 or so, we may exceed our decarbonization pathway, and that area under the hatched trajectory would equal the entirety of our carbon budget, basically all of the carbon we could emit between now and 2050 by the year 2034. So it shows that not only in the years to come do we have to accelerate our climate action so that we stay underneath our trajectory, but that we also have to create additional space for us to get all the way to 2050 without exceeding our overall emissions. This is just a different way of looking at that data in terms of what our current emissions reductions are compared to the emission reductions we've set for individual fuels and individual sectors. So for instance, for electricity, we want to be carbon neutral. And in fact, we want to be 100% renewable electricity by 2030. In 2023, we had a 63% reduction in emissions. And our next milestone will be in 2025, when we want to see that be a 75% reduction in emissions. Also, most, I think, relevant to the discussion here today then is the fossil gas. We have created a longer pathway for decarbonizing on fossil gas, but we do need to see sizable emissions reductions, particularly when you look at 2035. We need to see an 80% reduction. So the next decade or so, we're going to need to see rapid decarbonization in this sector to meet our goals. Unfortunately, at this time, we only have in 2023 a 1% reduction in gas, which underscores the importance of us providing a lot of effort and resources and, I think, conversation to how we can decarbonize the sector of our emissions that comes from gas. Looking back a little historically, when the Clean Energy Partnership was first created, we actually, about 10 years ago, electricity was a larger component of our emissions than natural gas was. And then if you go back even further to the baseline year of our climate equity plan, emissions from electricity were about 2/3 higher than emissions from gas. But due to the rapid decarbonization of the electricity, particularly in Xcel Energy's network, those emissions have really rapidly gone down in the last few decades, whereas we see that fossil gas emissions have remained relatively stable, if not inching up a little bit. If we then take that historical context and then project that out into the future, we can look at a few simplified scenarios for what we may see in years to come. First, looking at electricity, we will see that decarbonization continue for electricity. One scenario here is the city's 100% renewable electricity goal by 2030. So that would lead to the most rapid decarbonization of that sector. Outside of that goal, though, Xcel has made commitments in their most recent integrated resource plans to also rapidly decarbonize. And then there's state legislation that will create carbon-free electricity for all of the state's utilities by 2040. Then we flip to looking on the gas side, and again, if you take a trend line out into the future, you can see it continuing to increase. As of right now, there's no approved scenarios that, or let's say Public Utilities Commission approved scenarios that would show and quantify decarbonization in the fossil gas sector. Although it is worth noting that recently CenterPoint had adopted and approved by the Public Utilities Commission their Natural Gas Innovation Act, which I think you'll probably hear a little bit about later on as well. So that starts to create more processes and more opportunities to decarbonize this sector. Moving on to our next metric, this is for our municipal operations, the city's enterprise. We would like to see net zero emissions by 2040. We've had a 64% reduction in emissions since the 2008 baseline for this. So very rapid reduction and much more rapid in the community as a whole, almost twice as rapid as the community as a whole. We aim in the next 15 years to land that at a completely carbon neutral emissions for this sector. And due to the trajectory and the rapid decarbonization of the sector, we are labeling at this time this metric to be on track. Here's just a little bit more information that may be hard to see, but that illustrates how we've gotten to that level of decarbonization in the city enterprise. Shown in blue here is emissions from electricity. Those have decreased quite dramatically over the last decade and a half. A lot of that is things like energy conservation via LED retrofits, as well as then now we're procuring more and more of our electricity, almost the entirety of our electricity, from renewable resources. So that is really what has driven that to be, at this point, near zero. Shown here in green then is our natural gas emissions. And that's obviously a sector that we need to spend more time focusing on internally as a city as well. And you can see that's remained relatively constant over the last 15 years. So I think we as an enterprise also need to devote more resources to tackling that particular fuel. The next metric is metric 3. This is where we are attempting to get net zero emissions in the residential sector, so the community residential sector, by 2050. In this sector, we've had a 32% reduction. Similar to my previous statements, we also view this as not on track because when you look at the trajectory, we will soon exceed those targets that are a few years out in the future. Zooming in on the components of those residential emissions reductions, that sector has had a 51% reduction in electricity emissions in the last decade and a half, and about a 17% reduction in fossil gas emissions. And that's noteworthy because, as you'll see in a few minutes, in the commercial industrial sector, we have not seen a reduction in emissions from gas. But of course, also as you see here, we have a lot more work to do in this sector as well, particularly, and this is, I know, a major focus of the work here in the health department and of this committee, in weatherizing homes across the city. Pivoting then to the commercial industrial sector, we've had emissions reductions of 42% since 2006. Same reasoning applies why we deem this to not be on track to meet our future goals. And looking within the actual fuel components, we see there's a 66% reduction in electricity. Soon we want that to be 75%, so we're getting close to that next goal. However, noteworthy is that there is a 13% increase in gas use in the sector. And this has been a topic that we spent a lot of time talking about the Clean Energy Partnership Board meetings, as well as some of our EVAC meetings, and then just staff time talking with Centerpoint and city staff on why are emissions going up in the commercial industrial sector. It is a very extensive and detailed conversation to have, and I know we had that at the last board meeting, but just in real brief, there are a few things at play here. One is there's some annual variations in weather that cause changes. That probably has a muted impact in this sector, but it does have some impact. Also, we've seen a lot of building. There's newer, but more buildings in the last 15 years. So that increases just the overall use of gas because new buildings that are going up in the commercial industrial sector are by and large and probably almost exclusively still being heated ultimately from natural gas heating. But one of the things we particularly explored was that the University of Minnesota recently, about 7 years ago, that's what I mean by recently here, brought online a combined heat and power plant. So this is a power plant that they now burn gas and get two things out of it. They get electricity for their campus operations, and they get heating for their buildings. Previously, they just burned gas to create heating for the buildings. They didn't produce electricity. For a number of reasons, they wanted to produce their own electricity in-house for some stability and research applications. So they undertook this very, very large project. But the ultimate impact of that is that that project has taken away emissions from the electricity side because now they're basically getting electricity for free from this combined heat and power plant, but they've added emissions to the gas side because now they're burning more gas for this overall process. Even though that process is efficient, they're burning more gas. So that has a significant impact here, anywhere between 8 to 10% annually. So that's the major driver for this increase. And again, it's something that we'll continue discussing at the Clean Energy Partnership Board level. Metric 5 is examining our goal to be 100% renewable electricity by 2030, again, for the entire community. We are at about a 40% in 2023. We see this as not on track. You can see that we are off of a trajectory that would indicate we would be on track. There have been kind of fits and starts in an increase in renewable electricity, particularly coming from Xcel's grid over the last few years, but the last 2 years we did see that plateau. I know a lot of these fits and starts come from the timeline of, for instance, coal plants being retired from Xcel's system and bringing online new resources. So it tends to be large projects that happen every few years that make a change here. I do also want to note that we are keeping our eye on our percent of renewable electricity because we have that community-wide goal for 2030. But what actually drives the emissions reductions to get us to carbon neutrality is when electricity is carbon-free. So although our renewable electricity, our electricity is about 40% renewable, it is about 64% carbon-free. So we will likely hit carbon-free before hitting 100% renewable, and that will help us then meet our electricity decarbonization goals. And that difference between those two numbers is by and large and almost entirely nuclear energy. That on any given year is about 20 to 25% of Xcel's generation mix. Our next metric is examining renewable electricity for municipal operations. We are at 97% in 2023. This is very hard to get exactly 100%. It's kind of an accounting challenge as we bring on new buildings and we demolish old buildings and enter new leases and exit old leases. So being at 97% is basically substantially being at 100% renewable electricity. And we have largely accomplished this by recent large purchases in Xcel's green tariff program, which is Renewable Connect, which is then subscribing to a particular basket of assets, wind and solar, to create the electricity resources to the city. And you can see a big jump really between 2017 and 2019. That's when some of those big contracts came online between us and Xcel Energy. And then over the last few years, we've been fine-tuning that and adding in more and more buildings to get to very near 100% there. I should also mention we, of course, are also, when it's technically feasible and economically viable, putting solar on as many of our facilities at the city here as possible, too. And then finally, our last metric is looking at trying to get to 100% renewable energy, but by getting 40% of it from local resources or people's opting into these resources on their bills. That would be opting into programs like WindSource and Renewable Connect that many of us as residents maybe already subscribe to. We are at just 8% towards this 40% goal, so we also have a lot of room to make up. What's notable between 2017 and 2019, 2020, there was substantial increase. That's when a lot of community solar gardens came online. Since that time, we've seen a lot fewer community solar gardens come online. So most of this increase since 2020 is for, I'd say a modest amount of new subscriptions to Renewable Connect and WindSource, and also then a modest amount of new home solar installations or business solar installations within the city. We'll round out our summary of the annual report now by talking about the specific activities that we are undertaking to try to accomplish those goals that were outlined in the metrics. So these are collaborative activities that we generally commit to as part of multi-year work plans of the partnership. We had a 2022-2023 work plan. We actually thought we saw a lot of success there, and we added an additional year to that work plan. That was also in recognition that in 2024, we were bringing on new leadership from, I think, all parties, but particularly from the city on the Clean Energy Partnership Board, and we wanted them to have a stake in any new commitments and plans we make. And it was also recognition that 2024 featured a lot of scaling up and rolling out of the Climate Legacy Initiative. And although that's not part of the work plan, we have relied on, in some of those activities, on substantial assistance from the utilities in rolling out those programs. There's 3 themes that are defined within the partnerships activities. These are the buckets that we kind of work in. We will each be taking one of these buckets to give some analysis of what we've worked on, but in short, theme 1 is decarbonization of homes via energy efficiency and electrification. Theme 2 is accelerating in-boundary solar, basically in-city solar, towards meeting the city's goal of 30% distributed solar within the city. And then the third theme is then really impactful reductions in gas usage, particularly in that commercial industrial sector. Theme 1 was led by us here at the City of Minneapolis, and in short, it contained 2 specific activities. One was to create a home electrification guide, and another was to contract out with a consultant to come up with a programmatic concept and a roadmap and scoping for how we would do comprehensive home energy efficiency and electrification work across the thousands and thousands of homes in the City of Minneapolis. On that first activity, the Home Electrification Guide, we did launch a website called Electrify Everything Minnesota in early 2023. This website is meant for particularly homeowners that may be looking to electrify their homes but need more additional resources to actually accomplish that. It's also noteworthy that we actually set out on this process of creating this website before the federal administration was taking much action. So we began this process even before the Inflation Reduction Act came into effect. And I should note also, we're particularly happy that we have resources like this now, recognizing the new Trump administration coming in, and that we maybe have to provide a lot of these resources again in ways that we didn't have to the last few years. This actually became a collaboration between us at the city, as well as Edina, St. Louis Park, and Eden Prairie, who are also looking to get into this electrification space for homes. And then our contractor for this work was CEE. And Xcel Energy and Centerpoint Energy also provided a lot of great content and resources for the web page. We're trying to use the web page as a vehicle for people to enter into, and then it sends them to the appropriate resources like financial incentives and rebates from the utilities or other help guides that they may have available. We also are uniquely creating our own content too, because we are particularly focused on electrification, and that is an area that we have even more content than the utilities at this point. This is just an example of what the banner of the web page looks like. It's electrifyeverythingminnesota.org. Some of the results we've seen in about a year and a half that I have data for. So about 8,300 website visits. We also send out quarterly newsletters to people who subscribe to this. There have been conversations had with about 190 residents at 7 different community-based events. Think things like open streets. So we have face-to-face conversations with these individuals, and we've relied a lot on Center for Energy and Environment and some of their year-long fellows to do that work for us. We've also provided one-on-one home electrification support for 17 households. So similar to how if you get a home energy squad visit through the utilities and you can call up an energy advisor to talk through your results, we, the city now have made it possible for a homeowner to call up CE and talk through electrification strategies that would not otherwise be covered under Home Energy Squad. So we've added that additional service, and this is really geared towards first adopters. So it's not widespread at this point, but we need first adopters to do that adopting to get the ball rolling on home electrification. As I mentioned, we partnered with some of our suburban communities to launch the website, but we also launched a heat pump water heater installer network. This was to provide training to HVAC contractors who maybe weren't as experienced in installing heat pump water heaters. They're much more experienced in installing gas water heaters. So working with CE, we help provide training for them and certification, and we're helping via the website send business to them because they're then seen as a trusted contractor who has some level of education in this space. And here's an example of one of the trainings that CE put on just about a year and a half ago. And finally, for theme 1, we created this comprehensive roadmap for home electrification energy efficiency. This was a report that has been, I think, somewhat widely talked about, particularly within the climate circles here in City of Minneapolis. It was a report that we contracted with CEE to create and involve both city staff as well as community groups and community stakeholders. Amongst those stakeholders, in addition to advisory committee members, we also had the utilities providing some of their expertise to this process. And then we had a number of workshops where we ended up modeling different scenarios for home electrification to provide, ultimately in the report, resources to individuals that may want to electrify, as well as to provide an overall view of the magnitude of the opportunity across the city for electrification. So the report, again, was released almost 2 years ago now, and there was a follow-up webinar that was very well attended. Some of the things the report did was it did an analysis of the city's building stock, and by building stock I mean 1 to 4 unit residential homes. So for instance, we had findings like, as not surprisingly, the majority of homes are heated with gas heating. Somewhat more surprising though was how prevalent electric cooking was. We thought that it would be the majority of homes had gas cooking. We found in the results that it was actually the majority of homes had electric cooking. So it helped us get a better understanding of the entirety of homes out there in the city. It also then looked at other elements of home characteristics such as weatherization. So it is in this report that we were able to ascertain that 46% of these homes had inadequate wall insulation, which is a real striking number when you think about it. Every other home in the city doesn't have enough wall insulation to meet current standards. Even further, 56% of homes in the city don't have adequate attic insulation. And that's an even sometimes easier thing to accomplish because it's sometimes more accessible to get to the attic than walls. So this illustrates for us the magnitude of the work we need to do, but it's the magnitude of the opportunity as well. We also examined dual fuel space heating. This is a way to heat your home with your existing central AC system where for 3 months of the year, spring, summer, fall, if you are in heating mode, you could heat with your heat pump, and then in the coldest days of the year in the winter, you could still rely on your gas furnace or boiler to provide heating during that time. This is not a very prevalent technology that's out there in the marketplace, but there's a lot of potential for it, and it was one of the key findings that allowed us to then start to fine-tune some of our offerings, particularly some of our offerings in the Climate Legacy Initiative. We also then found, again on the same topic as weatherization, that if we were to just electrify homes without weatherizing those 50% of homes that are inadequate, there would very likely be an increase in utility costs for most homeowners. Shown here is that when you include weatherization in that work and you electrify, on average, there should be no increase in utility costs. It'll vary home by home, but electrification is pivotal to making, weatherization is pivotal to making electrification cost efficient. And finally, going back to these dual fuel heat pump systems, some of our findings illuminated that the good compared to the perfect is actually very, very good. So we found that an all-electric retrofit of a home can lead to substantial, nearly 100% elimination of emissions for that home. But a dual fuel system set up properly and tuned properly and controlled properly can lead to a very significant reduction in emissions as well, upwards of almost 90%. So that's just an example of how, as much as we would, in many cases, like to see full home electrification, we have many good options that get us most of the way there. And then all of this work really led into and helped build the momentum for the Climate Legacy Initiative. So as you're all aware, of course, that launched a little over a year ago now with about $10 million of annual funding. And based on the research that I just went over, that helped inform that we needed a substantial amount of that investment to go towards weatherization and energy efficiency in Minneapolis. And I won't get into the details there. There's so many great details. I know Patrick Hanlon has multiple times presented to this committee on this, and in particular, he last presented on November 21st. There's a lot of great details in that presentation. With that, I will hand it off to Sophia to talk about theme 2.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about theme 2, which is equitably accelerate in-boundary solar in support of the city's goals of 30% distributed solar. And basically, this theme was for us to collaborate, utilities, the city, to remove barriers and try to find some innovative ways to increase that adoption. We had 3 activities that we were planning on. Looking at municipal operations, and are there some innovative ways that we could increase that that adoption in the municipal sector. The Resilient Minneapolis project, which is something that got filed together with the utilities, the city, and the 3 main nonprofits that were to be participating in this. And basically the objective of that was to demonstrate technical and market potential of these microgrids with backup battery storage to increase resiliency. And this was after unrest and pandemic issues that we discovered that there was some vulnerabilities in communities that we could help with this. So that was filed at that point, and we were looking to explore more of that. And then there was also an in-boundary solar task force between the city, Xcel Energy, and the EVAC members, which is that advisory board, to try to figure out, other ways that we could help with that in-boundary solar. So in terms of accelerating, I mentioned removing those barriers. We looked at rooftop solar within the city limits and or community solar garden subscriptions. And what we found is there were some opportunities for on-site solar in municipal buildings, but there was also a lot of barriers. So the bulk of what ended up being implemented was, as Luke already mentioned, subscriptions, and so you can see there really supporting the subscription system and taking advantage of the decarbonization of the grid to support the decarbonization of municipal operations. The next one that I talked about was this Resilient Minneapolis that was filed together with the city and the nonprofits. And that was filed, and then there was some stalling because there was significantly increased cost, in part because of supply chain issues and inflation, et cetera. Xcel Energy was able to get some grid resiliency and innovation partnership grant money that we were able to apply to secure matching federal funds to reinstate this. You'll see there's some photos, of the Minneapolis American Indian Center, which is one of the recipients, of this funding, and will be receiving some of the microgrid installations. Renewable Energy Partners is also going to build, own, and operate in North Minneapolis a microgrid with the Minneapolis Public School District. And there's also one of the newer things is that this funding, with the revised funding, it's going to help some additional activities that were not originally budgeted in the original filing. And those include some community benefits, clean energy, careers training, I believe at both Sabathani and the Renewable Energy Partnership installations, as well as some tech assistance in partnership with the University of St. Thomas Center for Microgrid Research. In terms of the in-boundary task force, there were 3 meetings that took place early on, looking at how could we accelerate the adoption of in-boundary solar within Minneapolis. And we as the collective, we explored the barriers to adoption, some of the characteristics of the city that make it a little bit harder for adopting in Boundary Solar, shared programs that were available, and learned more about some of the issues that people were facing in trying to connect to the system. And there were some solutions explored to try to accelerate that solar development. At this point, the latest that we have discussed was trying to take the opportunity to promote some of the existing programs that we have for solar interconnection programs, as well as our subscription programs. Some of the progress that has been made, as well as some improvements. I mentioned the interconnection. I know that there were back then some issues with delays with interconnection. That was something that we heard from community. There have been some process improvements to help better explain and provide better information about the process for both contractors and individuals looking to interconnect. As an example, there's a map where people can go and look at their address and figure out kind of what the capacity is in their area. And then I've listed some of the programs that were originally included when those meetings took place. Renewable Connect Flex, which has been talked about. One of the newer programs that has been added is the Battery Storage Incentive Program, which provides some upfront incentives for both residential and business customers who are either already have solar or who are considering getting solar, and then they could get the battery storage in addition to that. Other things that are available are the IRA tax credit. Community solar has had some reforms trying to make the system more equitable, and the distribution system has gotten some additional infrastructure investments and interconnection improvements. And I will pass it on to Kat.
Thank you. So theme 3, I feel as if there's a theme within theme. It's 333, so you're going to hear that over and over again. This is the impactful reduction of the commercial and industrial natural gas use. It's a 3-pronged approach, basically shorter-term energy efficiency, longer-term energy efficiency, and then decarbonization through the NGIA or the Innovation Act. You'll probably hear me talk about it interchangeably. So the first one, the New Normal campaign, also has 3 parts to it. This was truly a collaborative effort. I want to take a moment to thank city staffers, city council staff members, and Centerpoint staffers who aren't here. We have been meeting, I believe, biweekly for 2 years. This has shown a true commitment. We have iterated, we've developed, iterated, we've gone to the board, we've taken feedback. I really believe this shows the best of what, when people put their heads together, you can get something better than if people are siloed. So huge thanks. We knew that the pandemic really impacted a lot of residents. It impacted commercial businesses, and note I'm using businesses in quotes. It impacted a lot of them, and there's a new normal that's emerged from that. And when we started this, we were still in the depths of the pandemic. It's continued to show. It really helps focus on increasing energy efficiency and providing needed support, especially as supply chains are still a little disrupted and things continue to change. We built on the city's pre-existing benchmarking program. So properties benchmarked, and the city went ahead and said, all right, any benchmark properties and those lowest quartile, those that need the most help, we will cover the copay for energy audits, both on the gas and the electric side. Also, huge thanks to Franklin Energy and Frontier Energy, who were the vendors who provided that. They far exceeded, I'm kind of giving a spoiler alert, they far exceeded the goals. That they were amazing at achieving those. So the first step was that. Second step was Centerpoint created a building controls tune-up, essentially. If a property had a few separate things and they could really benefit, we created almost a really light, what you call like recommissioning, taking a look, going in and really digging into the energy efficiency and seeing what can be changed. And then third step, triple rebates. So even more money. If an organization, say a faith community, doesn't have a building automation system or it's really rudimentary, they just get to go straight to the triple rebates and work with trying to increase, especially those organizations who need to work with councils and build up capital funds and things. So we have really found that it's been helpful, and I say really found because the pathway ended. Basically, as of December 31st, they had to start the pathway with one exception, and that is the Minneapolis Public Schools. We're really excited about this. Early on, MPS showed a lot of interest, and huge thanks to the city who said, okay, we can set aside funding over the course of 3 years because more than 60 buildings. There's no way the school district, there's no way the vendors could do all of those energy audits in that first year. So instead, we're taking the approach 20, 20, and 20, approximately. And we've already, in year 2, we've already adjusted how we're doing things. We're streamlining. So we're having Michael's Energy, who is the vendor that does the building controls tune-up, they're working on all of it. They're working on the gas and the electric first step audit at the same time that they're working on that second building automation step. I think early on, the facilities manager with MPS, when we were all meeting, put it best when he said that every nickel that he saves is a nickel that goes directly into the classroom. And that's something that as we've been working, we've been thinking about really consciously in terms of both dollars, but also staff time as well. So we have done 43 buildings. We will do another round next year. There's a giant, what they call opportunity register that's being created. It's really turned into a holistic approach to energy savings. So we will see a savings come in from this and greenhouse reductions over the course of years, which is wonderful. And I'm interested, I think the school district said they have about a 10-year plan for facilities. They have told us this has helped speed up their plan. I don't know how much yet. I think we will continue to report on this and learn more as this goes along. So we have learned a lot. Lessons learned. I will not bore you with all of them. I think when I started to look, this was 4 slides, and I decided that would be ridiculous. So what we found is that customers in that lowest quartile, those that had the lowest energy scores, need a lot of help. It isn't just energy that they're having some challenges with. They're trying to figure out how to prioritize. They may be going through financial issues. And one thing that we found is with one customer who has completed the pathway, it took 14 touch points for them to even begin that first audit. So we'll continue to work with all of them, and we've been working closely with the benchmarking team, meeting on a regular basis. The building control tune-ups are highly specific. I think the term unicorn is a little overused, but they seem to all be unicorns. And if we are going to continue this, that is a bit of a challenge, so we're looking at how that can be simplified and adjusted to make it iterable. Shockingly, customers are motivated by a limited time offer. Not a huge surprise, but at the end of last year and at the end of this year, customers were suddenly jumping on getting the energy audit. So a few of them entered that funnel right at the end. Customers with multiple properties were much easier to convince about this than customers that had one, for a number of reasons, I'm sure. And that's something that I think we want to continue to explore. When we first started this, I'd done the whole businesses in quotes. We really were picturing office buildings. Like when we would meet, we'd often talk about that. But what we found is that this cut across all sectors. There were interests from faith communities, higher education, schools outside of MPS, hospitality, museums. I think every single sector had at least one property interested. And that told us a lot. That told us that maybe it wasn't just the pandemic that was impacting, and maybe there was more interest even in learning about energy efficiency and simplifying, and then setting themselves up for decarbonizing as things move along. And then they told us to streamline the process. And we listened. We are testing some things with MPS and a couple of other customers, and I'm going to guess that customers would always ask us to streamline the process, and we can probably always improve on that. So, one thing to note is that there were some properties that weren't able to participate in this part of it. Those office buildings downtown that are on the district system are not CenterPoint customers. So, all right. So the results, they're already outdated. I know, Chair Cashman, these are the ones that you saw before. They're as of November. The updated results, which will ultimately be verified in our status report, we've now paid out, in 24, we paid, or by the end of 24, more than 450,000 rebates, and I think we're at 130% of the energy savings goal. I think the energy analyses have been done on more than 160 properties. We know there were a lot of electric savings being done. We haven't captured those. We can share that. But we know that as the properties were implementing these building control tune-ups, they were tuning up both the gas side and the electric side. And that was something we heard that was important for city staff. And that was something that was important from our Excel partner. And so we made sure that that was something that was included, when we were setting up the contract with the vendor. We also did some on-the-spot free installations of things like shower heads, which doesn't seem like much, but if you were a giant hotel and you were replacing all of the shower heads and you get them for free and their energy efficiency, boy, those customers really appreciate what you have done for them. So we will continue to show results over certainly the next year. So we had two other prongs. As the second one was the holistic approach. I have to read this off because this one's a little longer. The holistic approach with a large Minneapolis C&I customer on an intensive multi-year effort in energy management, and then working with them to help identify opportunities for improving their business practices associated with their corporate ESG goals. So the customer that we ended up working with was Abbott Northwestern Hospital, as they are undergoing their campus revitalization project. Luke referenced the combined heat and power plant that the university had put in a number of years ago. One of the items, this sort of the pretty rendering, the building down that says 2024, this summer Abbott put in a new, they call it the central utility plant. It started functioning, and that is providing heating and cooling and power and water for their entire campus, replacing some 1950s era equipment. It's powered by natural gas. It provides electricity and uses some of the waste heat to offset their heating load. They have talked about this. They have a really great presentation. Actually, I just found on their website that I hadn't seen when I was looking back a couple of months ago when I was updating our presentation for the partnership board. They have a really nice presentation on their site talking about how they see this whole project going and some of the energy improvements. One of the things that they have referenced multiple places is that the steam created by this will create a small district system. It'll heat the buildings not only for the Abbott campus, but also for Children's Minneapolis, Minnesota Minneapolis, and then some of the other neighbors. So they are especially proud of that, and that is something that we haven't really talked too much about them with, but since they seem to really feel proud about it, I wanted to give them a shout out about really thinking really holistically on that. And then there will be more. They're doing that LEED certified tower as well, among other things. So we'll have more in the future. And the third prong is really looking ahead. Hennepin County Energy Center, which is just by US Bank Stadium, is looking at decarbonizing their district system. They put forth a report. We worked with them on it. We helped provide funding, looking at developing, considering, evaluating opportunities to decarbonize that system. One thing that makes that system a little tricky, as they have said, is that of utmost importance for them is the redundancy to protect their Trauma 1 hospital, which is served by this system. And so their situation is a little different than, say, some other systems, and so they're extra cognizant of that. We had multiple meetings, Hennepin County, the city, and Centerpoint, and then sometimes their vendor would join us quarterly throughout this process. This report, I think, came out at the end of 23, beginning of 24, and Centerpoint helped fund this. We are continuing to meet with them. They are looking at opportunities that are available through the Natural Gas Innovation Act and some various decarbonization opportunities. So there will be more. This really is kind of the beginning of what they're doing. They've been very thoughtful about this. So I think that ends that. I think we will stand for questions. Luke?
Yeah, thank you, committee members. Happy to stand for questions, and then after any questions and comments, we'd like to turn it over to EVAC co-chair Patty O'Keefe, who's joining us to provide her impressions on our annual report as well.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, and I also want to congratulate Al on his retirement, and also, welcome Kat into her new role. So just round of applause for Al and your participation on the Clean Energy Partnership, and your work for multiple decades. So thank you for that, and welcome Kat. Excited to work with you more. So any questions from committee members for this first group of presenters? Yeah, I will ask about the reports before 2023. So had some questions about how to access them. And so this is, again, back to the Clean Energy Partnership website conversation that we've been having. So could you provide an update for the committee on when we could expect the Clean Energy Partnership materials to be integrated into LIMS, which I think is how we are going to be moving forward?
We have heard, thank you, Chair. We have heard from clerk's office through our communications folks that LIMS may not be the best tool for
I see.
this. That being said, I think now that we're past this presentation, I think number one on our list is to get the website up and running. We do have a very reasonable third-party vendor that I believe looks really promising. So without us discussing amongst each other up here on the stage, I think that is our number one priority now that this presentation is over. And I think the best opportunity at this point is likely that third-party vendor.
Thank you. And just for the public to know, the 2023 report that you're presenting on now is on LIMS for their review, and then the previous reports from the last few years can also be made available upon request.
Yes, and Chair, maybe the clerk's office, if we're able to add additional documents still to this legislative file, we'd be happy to add those previous reports as well.
Okay, let's do that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Good to hear the update on like a third-party vendor to get just some transparency and a website for the public to go to. Presently, it looks like, just through my scouring of LIMS, we have annual reports from 2019, and there's a gap, and then we have 2023. And so if we could be expedient about the other annual reports that are in between there to just get into the public file, especially before we get into the conversations, it would around the franchise agreement. So before the end of this week. Just having those up would be really, really useful, because I was trying to just go look back and kind of compare and contrast between annual reports.
Thank you. And then I had another question, which was about the barriers to putting solar on municipal buildings that you encountered. What were some of those barriers?
And thank you, Chair. I'll have to go a little bit off of memory, and our city energy manager, Chris Drosky, is not here today.
That's fine.
So I won't maybe speak too much about it, but in general, what I'm aware of is that we tried a novel tactic, which was that we tried to put out an RFP to put a large amount of solar over a large number of buildings. And we then awarded that contract based on a fixed price per kilowatt of solar installed. After that contract was awarded, and this was a number of years ago now, I believe 3 years ago now, when the contractor that we selected went into our facilities, they found that there were a lot of deficiencies that would not allow those to be good sites for solar or very expensive to put on. For instance, the structural elements of the roof would not handle the additional load of solar panels. So our list of projects, potential projects, became a lot smaller. And because it was a lot smaller, the contractor wasn't able to realize economies of scale to meet their expected cost. Also, it would have required to go through with those projects a lot of additional investment from the city just to, for instance, beef up those structures. So what we pivoted away from that approach, and now we're looking at site-by-site approaches, and I know Chris Drosky is particularly interested and has been working with his counterparts at Excel on our water plant site, because there's a lot of land there and underutilized land from a solar perspective, but by focusing on individual sites as opposed to kind of swinging for a home run, I believe that we feel that we will make additional progress. And as we bring more solar online on our city facilities, our contracts in the future with Excel for Renewable Connect do at some point expire. So our hope is to bring on more of our own solar, and at the same time when that comes on, then be able to taper off of our Renewable Connect contracts.
Okay.
That being said, there's still many buildings in the city that would just not be good sites for solar.
Okay, thanks for that information. And then I think Sophia, you were saying that we did subscriptions instead of solar. Would those subscriptions be for in-boundary solar, or would they be subscriptions to solar that's coming from outside of the city?
Yeah, it's solar outside of the city. It's
I see.
anywhere in our system.
Okay.
I think it has to be adjacent, but yeah.
Okay, thanks. Those are the questions I have for now. And of course, this presentation is really helpful as we're queuing up conversations about the franchise agreements in the next couple committee meetings. So I'm sure more things will come up in the next few cycles as we get into those details. Any other questions before we move on? Councilmember?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You touched on a little bit of the difference. I think it was like 64% to 43% on renewable energy, the decarbonized energy, and you touched a little bit on nuclear. Could you speak a little bit more in detail to that point that you made that accounted for the difference?
Yes, absolutely. Let me try to find that slide. Here we go. So the official goal we have at the city is to be 100% renewable electricity by 2030 for community-wide. So this metric 5, specifically tracks that renewable electricity as a percentage. But there will come a time when we are maybe 75% renewable electricity, where we might also then have no emissions from electricity. And that's because an additional 25% of electricity on the grid, as supplied by Xcel, is coming from their 2 nuclear plants, Prairie Island and the Monticello plant. And I think one of them just received a operating extension through 2050. I recall. So we will zero out emissions from the electricity sector prior to us actually having 100% renewable electricity.
Got you, thank you. That's a helpful clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say thank you to Councilmember Cashman and Council Vice President for sitting on the Clean Energy Partnership and all of your work on it. As not a member of the Clean Energy Partnership, this annual report just matters a lot to me, just to see how we're doing on the goals that we've set forward. I think they're good and ambitious goals. I think I'll say the quiet part out loud. We want to see more green, like on track in the future, and that should be one of our goals moving into the next year. One thing that I noticed is there seems to be a barrier in significantly making the reductions around fossil and gas, just in general, and then also we're doing a good job in our municipal operations, but it looks like fossil and gas is pretty consistent since the start. I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to some of the barriers that we need to overcome to see some of those reductions, both for us as a city and then just generally to get on track on the goals that we have as a partnership.
Yes, Chair, I'd be happy to speak to maybe the citywide gas, and then maybe I'll ask Kat to speak to kind of more the broader perspective. For the citywide emissions, and I'll bring that back up here, as you stated in green here, gas emissions remain relatively constant over the years. And speaking with our energy manager, Chris Strosky, this is a topic that he's excited to begin focusing on. There was a period of time, I'd say from the late 2010s to early 2020s, where the majority of our energy manager's time, in addition to being, keeping the lights on and keeping power running and paying the bills, was focused on getting solar on as many of our city sites as possible. Given limited resources, that meant it was very difficult for him then to spend the time focusing on gas reductions. Now that we have really achieved our city enterprise renewable electricity goal, and are taking more of a project-by-project approach to adding solar, he's excited that he's able to devote more time to reducing emissions from the city. Our enterprise and our operations, one of the things that it'll come down to is it will require upfront investments in, I think, both weatherization of our facilities, but in new types of equipment. So that will be one of the primary barriers that will need to be overcome, is making that investment in the coming years. And Kat, I'll ask you to speak to community.
Great. Yes, I think continued partnership, which is one reason I really, really appreciate the Clean Energy Partnership between the city and Centerpoint, but also then Centerpoint and the customers will make a big difference. I believe when Patrick Hanlon presented on the Climate Legacy Initiative, he referenced Metalmatic, for example, and Centerpoint had been working with that large customer in Minneapolis for, I think, 11 years, trying to help them make some of these changes, and it really was that city funding that came through from the Climate Legacy Initiative that pushed that over the edge. Those continued items and things like those 160 customers are seeing within those energy audits that they have, both on the gas and the electric side, that already tees them up for things like taking advantage of green cost share dollars when those calls come out, and they can go ahead and say, oh, hey, we really want to implement this now. In addition, they're already poised well to start taking advantage of some decarbonization things. There's a lot of interesting and challenging things that are going to be piloted in the innovation plan, like weatherizing commercial and industrial facilities, which is so different than weatherizing homes. Anyway, there are a number of things. I kind of won't go into them, but they also include everything from network geothermal, really, really large-scale things, to smaller. And so we're really making a concerted effort and really focusing. All customers are important, and a lot of them have been using energy more efficiently. So we will make sure we focus on those harder ones to cut down the energy, those larger users. So yeah, we really look forward to this. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Could we go to that one slide that looks at the exhausted carbon budget that we have as a city? Yeah, I think I'll just close with this. I think this was one of the more jarring slides that I saw today, that we're just in a trajectory of exhausting our carbon budget by 2034. And it's not to be negative, but it is just to highlight the urgency of this moment, right? I'd like to see that some of the goals that you've presented today for the next year, that reduction that we saw for 2023 and then the following year, I'd love to see some of those accomplished, and I know our residents would too. I'm really interested in seeing with the work that's being implemented through the Climate Legacy Initiatives, the impacts that we'll see in next year's report and the following. But I think this is kind of like the slide that ties it all together, and why this partnership exists and why this annual report and the goals itself matter. When I look at the report, I see that we're making progress, but when you just start off on the slide of like, are we on track? And you see we're only on track for a couple out of many, that's our accountability metric. And it just really shows, again, like there's a lot of work to be done and the urgency needs to be there. And just to committee members and to our chair, I know we have a lot of things within our work plan, but this next year would be really interested to see how, as a body, we can be further invested in just even understanding how do we show up in leadership to meet these goals that we're setting out through the partnership, and be supportive of you and Council Vice President and your role and capacity and leadership in the Clean Energy Partnership.
Thank you, Councilmember. I will just add to the gas part that you were talking about, is that, there's only so far efficiency can take us. At the end of the day, we need a new product. We need to be off gas entirely. And so in order to heat buildings without gas, that means that we need to develop clean heat technology. And that's why I'm so excited about the geothermal pilots, and making sure that the city is able to apply when that pilot window gets open and be the leader in the city in developing clean heat in our city. So I would love to see us get off gas entirely in my lifetime. And, we need to. That's kind of the part here, is that gas is never going to be a clean energy source. So with that, I just really thank you for coming before the committee today and sharing so much great information with everyone who will be on the topic of the franchise agreements in the coming cycles. And I guess we could welcome up Patty O'Keefe from the Energy Vision Advisory Committee.
Hey, everybody. Hello, council members. I am going to try and keep this pretty short. My name is Patty O'Keefe. I am a co-chair with the Energy Vision Advisory Committee, and I'm a Minneapolis resident. And today I just want to provide an overview of EVAC kind of within the context of the partnership, list some of our kind of accomplishments and ways we've contributed to this conversation, and just some kind of high-level reactions and feedback that we had on the annual report. So the Clean Energy Partnership was established as kind of an innovative solution to help Minneapolis achieve its ambitious climate and clean energy goals. I think it's important to note how it started. It was proposed as an alternative to municipalization, as a way to kind of foster collaboration between the city and the utility partners. And the foundation of the partnership is laid out in several key documents, including the bylaws, which define the intent and structure of the partnership, and then the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, which formalizes the collaboration between the city and the utilities. And this is just a picture of the campaign, the municipalization Minneapolis Energy Options campaign. So the primary purpose of the Clean Energy Partnership is to support the City of Minneapolis in achieving its clean energy and climate goals. The governance of the partnership is defined by the MOU and a detailed work plan, which outlines the specific responsibilities and initiatives. Exhibit A of the MOU further specifies these initiatives, and additionally, the franchise agreements provide the legal framework for the utility operations within the city. So EVAC is the Energy Vision Advisory Committee. We play a crucial role in this partnership. As an advisory body, EVAC ensures that the community voice is heard and that the partnership's activities align with Minneapolis's climate objectives. So our work is guided by the MOU-directed work plan, and we engage in both kind of like internal collaboration and discussion, and then also external community outreach to ensure that there is broad-based kind of input and support. So some of the key accomplishments of EVAC, and I'm probably missing some from when I haven't been on EVAC the entire time. So the ones I had is just that we provide community input and subject matter expertise on work plans, on annual reports, on partnership initiatives, and city and utility projects. So we've just like provided a lot of feedback on most of like everything, most of the partnership activities. We advocated for the increased franchise fees. The first franchise fee increase, that kind of idea and push really came from EVAC to fund more of our efficiency and clean energy programs. We were supportive of the Climate Legacy Initiative and provided a lot of input on that proposal. And we launched a community engagement pilot to enhance energy savings in low-income neighborhoods. And then we also contributed to the development of this workforce development study that the city did on clean energy jobs. So some of kind of the challenges and opportunities, I would just say for the annual report feedback, it's a lot of what we just talked about, that the partnership is currently not on track to meet most of its goals. And we haven't been on track. It's not like we were on track and then are now not on track. Like, we haven't been on track. And with the Trump administration coming in, we're going to need to see more effort from cities, from the utilities. And so that means that we need significant changes in realignment in how we are executing our strategies and measuring our progress. Like, something big needs to change. We need to get on track, which is, feels obvious, but EVAC has substantial concerns about fossil gas emissions in the city, which are undermining our broader climate goals and objectives. And we think that these need to be addressed with urgency. We know that some work is happening on this, can acknowledge that the Natural Gas Innovation Act is a part of this, but there needs to be more. There are, consistently service line replacements and maintenance that are putting like new infrastructure in the ground that has lifespans, of, I don't know exactly, probably like 40, 50 years, something like that. And so we need to be doing the planning now to figure out how to not continue to lock us into a system that keeps us relied on fossil gas into the future. And we, in addition to this, have some concerns around CenterPoint lacking kind of a clear goal that aligns with the city's emission reduction targets, and that slide that you pointed out. That also feels like the most important slide to me, and I think many people on EVAC. And so that the fact that, we need to have goals for all the partners that are aligned and that are aligned with the city's goals, because that's the point of the partnership, is to support the city in reducing emissions. And then we also have concerns that we're not on track to meet our inbound solar goal. That's going to require also a lot of effort, and we want to see more initiative and commitment there from Excel. Oh, and then just I think that, you know, we have the renegotiation of the franchise agreements and the MOU, and I think EVAC just wants the council to know that, like, we have a really unique opportunity to leverage these agreements as tools for kind of realigning our strategies and getting on the same page. So we are hoping that there will be, like, you know, that we're advocating for updated targets and increased accountability from all the partners. And I do want to say that I think it's important to name that there has been progress, but, you know, it's just the beginning. We have a lot more work to do to make sure that we decarbonize quickly and that we decarbonize equitably. We need to shift away from fossil gas. Commitments to 100% carbon-free energy are a big positive step, but they're not enough on their own. We need sustained commitment to equitable implementation of clean energy, addressing energy burden, and ensuring that low-income and BIPOC communities receive the relief that they need and deserve. So we can set these big goals, but how it's implemented really matters, and we really are just at the beginning of kind of our decarbonization, like, journey as a city. So there's never been more of a need for, like, collaboration and a partnership like this. So we just wanted to reaffirm that. So yeah, the summary is just that is everything that I've already said. So I don't think I have anything else, but thanks for your time today, and happy to answer any questions related to EVAC if you have them.
Thank you so much, Patty, for coming before the committee and for chairing EVAC. And I'll just note for the committee members that there will be openings on EVAC in the next round of appointed boards and commissions recruitment cycle in the spring. So we're all working to find good candidates to fill, I think, up to 6 positions. So thanks for that. And I'm not seeing any more questions before the committee today. So with that, we've concluded all of our business today, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.